This is your news source evening bulletin for today, Tuesday, the 11th day of March in the year 2025. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting, and here's what we're tracking tonight. Guyanese business magnate Nazar Mohammed, who was sanctioned last year by the U.S. government on claims of tax evasion and gold under-declaration, believes Vice President Barra Jagdeo is behind the demand of the Guyana Revenue Authority for the family to pay up more than $900 million in additional taxes for luxury vehicles imported more than 4 years ago. In an interview with News Source today, Mr. Mohammed said his family will not be making that payment and instead plans to take the GRA to court over its demand, which he believes is politically motivated and malicious. In 4 recent demand letters, the GRA informed siblings Azruddin Mohammed and Hannah Mohammed that based on a reassessment of customs duty and taxes on 4 luxury vehicles imported 4 years ago, they now owe the Revenue Authority more than $900 million in taxes. The GRA has stated that failure to pay the money within 14 days will result in a seizure of the vehicles. It has now been 8 days since those demand letters were sent to the Mohammeds. Businessman Nazar Mohammed said the GRA's move is intended to pressure his son not to seek political office, since the governing party views him as a political threat.
Well, even if we want to pay, how are we going to pay? That's number one, which we are not prepared to pay anyway, because our legal team has told us that this is ridiculous. This is a clear case of victimization. This is a clear case of pressuring us so that he can say that, well, listen, I'm not into politics, you understand? They want him to make a statement that, well, he's not going to run for these elections. That was the exact word that the emissary came with.
According to Mr. Mohammed, with the exception of the tax exemption granted to his daughter Hannah, who is a remigrant, no other concessions were granted to the family. But the GRA in its letters to the Mohammeds contends that Hannah Mohammed breached the conditions of the tax exemptions granted for the importation of a Ferrari car. According to the tax authority, she failed to reside in Guyana for the mandatory period of at least 183 days annually during the concessionary period. But Nazar Mohammed has refuted that claim. In the case of the other 3 vehicles owned by his son Azruddin Mohammed, the GRA said an investigation has revealed that the declared costs of the luxury vehicles are inconsistent with the values for similar vehicles with the same specifications. Nazar Mohammed told News Source that the claims by the GRA 4 years after the importation of the vehicles makes no sense.
To my mind, this is a very vindictive move by the government, because these vehicles have been processed by GRA, by all the agencies within GRA, 4 years and 3 years respectively. And I myself don't understand how come after all this time that this suddenly come up.
Nazar Mohammed said it is clear that Vice President Barra Jagdeo is behind what he sees as a vindictive move. He said the government which he previously supported appears to be worried with his son's political ambitions and philanthropic work across the country. The younger Mohammed Azruddin has been visiting communities and meeting with citizens, and has also been building new homes for those in need and starting up new businesses for others. He was also sanctioned by the U.S. government along with a number of the family's businesses.
And their main concern is that my son started his philanthropy work, and the public has been calling on him to seek political office. I have absolutely nothing to do with the politics, right? I'm an elderly man who only wants to return back to my Lord. in a manner that he's pleased with me.
Mr. Mohammed claims that the government even sent a representative to meet with him on the issue of his son's political ambitions.
Just after the emissary would have taken back, our conversation, the pressure started. And then suddenly we received these letters from GR. Well, he spoke about it in his press conference.
Last week, the Maritime Administration Department announced that it has taken a decision not to renew the cabotage permission previously granted to the Hadith World, which is a company owned by the Mohameds. The cabotage permission allowed foreign-flagged vessels to operate on coastal voyages in Guyana's waters. The company was granted a license to continue those operations after the U.S. sanctions. But after the issue was recently highlighted and the last license expired in February, MARAD has indicated that the license will not be renewed. The senior Mohammed said he cannot be stopped from doing business in Guyana, and he intends to have the court address the issue. In announcing the sanctions in June of last year, the U.S. Treasury Department warned that financial institutions and other persons that engage in certain transactions or activities with the sanctioned entities and individuals may expose themselves to sanctions or be subject to an enforcement action. More news coming up in just a moment.
It all starts with one. Maybe it's one look, the one, or one touch. Even one word. I can start with one step, or one promise, one thrill, one first time, one deep breath, one leap of faith, one day to remember, or one night to forget. One moment, so many stories that make up one crazy, average, everyday, fabulous life. We get one life, just one. Make your move. It all starts with one.
Your own home is so much more than just four walls, floors, and ceilings. It's a lifetime of great memories and stories. Come talk to us and start your journey home today.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Citizens, please be reminded that the Ministry of Housing and Water does not sell land or housing units through any third-party arrangements or accept payments through any mobile money platforms. All our allocations are done at our Brickdam Georgetown main office, any of our regional offices, or at any scheduled Dream Realized event. A message from the Ministry of Housing and Water, Central Housing and Planning Authority.
Mobil Delvac Heavy Duty Lubricants. With more than 90 years of experience and innovation, Mobil Delvac is a recognized leader in advanced heavy-duty lubricants. Discover how the state-of-the-art Mobil Delvac technology can help protect and extend the life of your diesel engines. Mobil Delvac, a trusted brand for many successful businesses. Protect your fleet and keep your vehicles on the road and out of the shop. Helped by Mobil Motor Oils. Distributed by Sol Guyana Inc.
The Guyana Police Force today reported that 75 Venezuelan nationals, including 9 children, who were intercepted on Monday morning after arriving in the vicinity of the Abraham Zul seawall on the Essequibo coast, have been refused entry and deported. According to a statement from the police, the Venezuelans arrived early on Monday morning in a 45-foot-long vessel that was powered by 2 engines. They were spotted just after 6 a.m. by a police patrol in the area. The immigration department in the area was summoned and found that the Venezuelans had failed to present themselves to the immigration department or a port of entry and had used the Atlantic Ocean to enter Guyana. The police said 75 persons, 57 men, 9 women, and 9 children were treated humanely overnight and deported today. The Police Public Relations Department said the Venezuelans were escorted out of Guyana's waters in the same boat that they arrived in by the Guyana Coast Guard. Guyana has been facing a surge of Venezuelan migrants and refugees in recent years, with many of them arriving in Region 1 and eventually making their way to Georgetown and other parts of the country. The acting chancellor of the local judiciary, Justice Unit Cummings, has highlighted the issue of minimal women's participation in public office, while noting that there are now greater protection for women under the Constitution. Delivering a memorial lecture in honor of the late Chancellor Desiree Bernard at the University of Guyana on Monday, Justice Cummings noted that although there has been some processes, both locally and internationally, to address the question of equality, women are still excluded from major decision-making roles.
So it is known that women have been excluded from decision-making processes, from public offices, from governments, from top positions. It tells me too that women have been, if they happen to find their way to the top, is either by accident, maybe affirmative action, or perhaps the exception rather than the rule.
The acting chancellor argued that decisions which are taken in both public and private offices without a gender balance or enough women's participation are decisions that must be reviewed. She also called for a change of the mindset and cultural practices if the rights of women are to be achieved.
For there to be gender equality and to bridge the gender divide, it is evident that a lot has to be done. Article 29, it would appear, is a brilliant start, a step in the right direction. It is a known fact that women make up a large part of the global society or global offices and are not accordingly represented in top positions in the public and private spheres.
Justice Cummings acknowledged legislative advancements both here in Guyana and in the region, which aim to advance women's rights. However, she stated that despite those interventions, women remain underrepresented in too many instances.
Although today many more women now have the right to vote and to participate in democratic government, even these political rights have not translated into greater participation by women in high levels of public office. Indeed, women's presence in elected bodies at all levels of domestic government, international organization is minimal. It has been argued that women's disparate treatment and mistreatment is in law and practice.
The acting chancellor also said leaders in every sector must ensure that they prioritize women's participation in decision-making opportunities. Let's tell you now that the Working People's Alliance believes that with almost half of Guyana's population still living in poverty, the government should be condemned over its management of the country's economy. The WPA's condemnation follows a report from the International Monetary Fund, which said Guyana's economic transformation is advancing at a strong pace owing to the oil and gas sector. The co-leader of the WPA, Dr. David Hines, said the country's growth rate is not reflective in the lives of the regular man and woman.
We are not just looking at growth, but we are looking at development. We are not just looking at economic indicators in terms of numbers, but we are looking at the human development factor. And we think that these international organizations tend to fall short of that broader background against which we do our evaluation.
Dr. Hines said that while there is no doubt that revenues earned from the oil and gas sector have changed Guyana's economic profile, there is little socio-economic transformation. He accused the government of spending lavishly on infrastructural development, while there is little qualitative change in the collective material circumstances of most of the population.
Poverty still haunts the lives of almost half of the population. The secondary school dropout rate still hovers around 50%. Wages in the public sector are still depressed. The relatively high cost of living has not been arrested by the government. The long-standing electricity problem has gotten worse by the day. The sugar industry continues to be a heavy burden on the government. These are only a few of the woes.
At the WPA's Monday press conference, Dr. Hines also said that after almost 5 years in office, the PPP is underperforming when it comes to addressing the issue of poverty and the real needs of citizens. The party is of the opinion that the government lacks a clear and coherent vision for the transformation of the
Your own home is so much more than just four walls, floors, and ceilings. It's a lifetime of great memories and stories. Come talk to us and start your journey home today.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Ready to up your game? Ready to up your game? Win big with over 60 epic prizes. A brand new PS5, Nintendo Switch, iPhone 16 Pro Max, Apple smartwatch, and the hottest earbuds from Apple and Samsung. Plus, we are giving away thousands in phone credit and a whole year supply of Buster or Turbo Energy drink. Here's how. Buy any Buster or Turbo Energy drink, find the code starting with BB and enter online or on WhatsApp. Visit us on Facebook or Instagram at Turbo_Caribbean or Buster Guyana for all the details. Don't just play. Up your game with Buster and Turbo Energy.
25 ranks of Guyana Police Force's Criminal Investigations Department are being trained in the area of cybercrime detection. In a statement, the Guyana Police Force indicated that the training is part of a strategic move to bolster the force's capabilities in tackling the growing threat of cybercrime. The 2-week training program is being spearheaded by Officer in Charge of the Cybercrime Unit, Assistant Superintendent Jared Colden, and also include personnel from the National Data Management Authority and specialists from neighboring Trinidad and Tobago. The officers being trained were drawn from the various regional police divisions. The police force said the primary aim of the training program is to equip participants with the requisite investigative skills, enabling them to understand and apply procedures in cybercrime investigations effectively. It is also aimed to boost the skills and knowledge of the police ranks in dealing with procedures involving digital evidence collection and forensic techniques, the articulation of informed opinions about crime scene analysis, investigative response, digital investigation procedures, and case analysis. The force said the training underscores its commitment to staying ahead of technological advancements in crime. The Ministry of Public Works has indicated that individuals, agencies, and companies seeking to have signs and advertisements painted along the seawall between Kingston and Ogle must now seek and obtain the approval of the Sea and River Defense Board. In a notice published today, the ministry said the signs and ads will have to comply with the guidelines that are stipulated by the Sea and River Defense Board. Written applications will have to be submitted to the chairman of the board, and the application should contain sufficient information on the reasons for publishing the notice or ad, including a description of the content, including its text. The application should also indicate the desired period for the notice or advertisement to be placed on the seawall. Companies, agencies, and organizations with existing signage along the seawall are now being required to make contact with the River and Sea Defense Board at its 4th Street, Kingston office. Police investigators in Region 9 are probing the murder of a 25-year-old Guyanese man who lives in neighboring Brazil, but was stabbed to death during a row with his stepfather in the village of Caraçabai. The incident took place on Monday evening, and the dead young man has been identified as Jonah Pedro. The suspect, 45-year-old Michael Francis, is currently hospitalized under police guard. According to a statement from the Guyana Police Force, on Monday morning, Mr. Pedro met up with his stepfather, his mother, and his stepsister in Carasabai, where they uplifted the government's cash grant. The four then visited a nearby shop where they indulged in alcohol drinking, and it was during that time that a suspect, Michael Francis, complained about his brother being murdered in another village 2 days earlier. The man reportedly threatened that he would take the life of the person who took his brother's life. He was rebuked by the stepson over his words, and the two men got into an argument. During that argument, the 45-year-old man reportedly armed himself with a knife and attacked the stepson, stabbing him in the area of his right shoulder and his right armpit. The young man collapsed to the ground as he attempted to run. As relatives rushed to his assistance, it is alleged that the suspect turned the knife on himself and stabbed himself to the chest. Both men were taken to the Lethem Hospital, where the young man was pronounced dead, and the stepfather was admitted in a critical condition. The police said the murder investigations are ongoing as the suspect remains in the hospital.
It all starts with one. Maybe it's one look. You know the one. Or one touch. Even one word. I can start with one step. Or one promise. One thrill. One first time. One deep breath. One leap of faith. One day to remember. Or one night to forget. One moment. So many stories that make up one crazy, average, everyday, fabulous life. We get one life. Just one. Make your move. It all starts with one.
Guyana's economy is rapidly transforming, and we're all part of it. Guy is at the forefront of this development by providing reliable and efficient energy and supporting community development from the very core. 100% of Guyana's profit goes back to building schools, roads, and other important infrastructure that connects our cities and towns, providing fuel to domestic, marine, industrial, and aerial transportation. Guy Oil has now repositioned itself as a market leader in the petroleum industry, building a better future for all of us.
With your regional and international news tonight, I am Svetlana Marshall. In the region, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves has condemned the construction of a lavish official residence for the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB. The mansion, which is set to cost 22 million EC dollars, has sparked outrage after it was revealed by Finance Minister to PM Gonsalves in his capacity as a member of the Monetary Council of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, ECCU. This act of excessive spending is an outrage, Prime Minister Gonsalves wrote in a letter addressed to Chairman of the ECCU Monetary Council, Antigua's Prime Minister Gaston Brown. Gonsalves criticized the lack of transparency regarding the project, highlighting the failure of oversight mechanisms by the ECCB, its board of directors, and the Monetary Council. Most notably, Gonzalez expressed his disbelief at the scale of the project, which involves constructing a 10,000 square foot mansion. He condemned the extravagant expenditure, especially at a time when the people of the region are facing severe economic challenges, including rising food prices and the looming threat of increased poverty. Caribbean governments have begun receiving formal notifications from the United States regarding its intention to sanction states and government officials involved in facilitating Cuba's medical assistance program. This program has benefited many countries in the region. Late last month, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a statement announcing the expansion of an existing Cuba-related visa restriction policy that targets forced labor linked to the Cuban labor export program. The new measures specifically target Cuba's overseas medical missions. The Secretary of State is threatening to impose visa restrictions on nations benefiting from what he calls Cuba's forced, abusive, and coercive labor export programs. Officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Grenada confirmed that the formal notification from the U.S. State Department arrived on Thursday, and it is believed that other governments in the region have since received the official correspondence. Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell is expected to craft an official response this week, but there appears to be some defiance from the administration. Grenada postures that the country is an independent nation and will conduct its relations with other states without bowing to such pressure. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines dismissed the U.S. threats of sanctions, stating that his country is prepared to continue its long-standing arrangement with Havana. And finally tonight, international news. U.S. President Donald Trump says he will double tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum from 25% to 50%. In the latest twist in a deepening trade war, Trump says it's in retaliation for the 25% tariff Ontario placed on electricity it sends to northern U.S. states. Trump says the tariffs will begin on Wednesday, adding that he'll declare a national emergency on electricity in those states. The latest escalation comes after the worst day of 2025 for U.S. markets, fueled by fears of President Donald Trump's aggressive tariffs on America's biggest trading partners. When asked about the potential recession in a recent interview, Trump said the economy was in a period of transition. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Svetlana Marshall, wishing you a pleasant evening.